Yo,
Yo,
yo.
What's good, creamers?
Yo.
Creamers.
Yo. Aiden, do the thing.
What's good, creamers?
What's good, creamers? Welcome back to the Half and Half podcast. This is episode 173. And as usual, I'm one of your co hosts, Vasanth Ramdas, joined by my senile co host, Aiden Mangan. I apologize in advance if he starts sundowning during this episode. He is older now, his bones are brittle, his skin is wrinkly. How you doing, bud?
What? I'm doing good. I'm 26. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's when they say the fall off begins.
It's almost as if, yeah, I know. I'm pretty much on my way out now.
He only
Yeah,
drinks
it's almost like I was
IPAs.
25 just 2 days ago. Yeah, I start talking about my lawn a lot. If
He drinks
it's like
IPAs in
suddenly
Manhattans.
acquires taste for cocktails that are incredibly bitter. Yeah,
I think you own a gramophone now, don't you?
I got a Grammy though. Oh, no,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't. I'm washed. I'm never
nah,
achieving
but for
anything. Now
yeah,
I'm
I'm just
26.
yeah. Obviously, we're recording this after Aiden's birthday, which if you follow us on Instagram at the Half Pod, you saw us post about it on the
Yeah.
story. But how was your? I know we're recording this before your actual birthday celebration, which is tomorrow.
Mhm.
But how was your actual
Yeah.
birthday? Did you get to do anything nice? I know weekday birthdays with work and stuff. Some people take their birthday off, but it can be tricky. So did you at least get to like have a nice dinner or go see a movie you wanted to
Yeah,
see or
yeah. No,
something?
Anna and I went out to dinner at
Hmm.
an Italian restaurant that I will not reveal the location or name of for my own privacy, I
He's
guess.
gatekeeping. He's
But
gatekeeping.
no, it was
He hates
Ariana's,
Olive
and
Garden, but he won't give us the alternatives.
it was Ariana's Media PA if people want to go there.
You see that I forced that out
So
of him. You're welcome.
uh exactly. Yeah, this is how people break so easily when they're being investigated. It's like
Exactly.
I'll never tell. I know you did it. Fine. I did.
Hayden's in an interrogation room and they just put a plate of Olive Garden breadsticks in front of him.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You're gonna talk, buddy."
No! 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 Um, yeah, I mean the breadsticks are fine with me. If it was like Olive Garden, just like general like the general menu, and they were like, guess what? We're gonna sit here and this is all you're gonna be able to eat. I would immediately talk. I don't care what they're done. Okay. Like,
Fair enough.
yeah. Me and Olive Garden don't care how long. That's been recorded on here, I believe. Um,
If
yeah,
not, you
Hassan,
put it
how about
on
you? How was
wax.
you went on a little trip? Yeah, I put it on wax, yeah. You went on a little trip, Hassan?
Yes, I did a little jaunt of North Carolina. Lisa's sister, Marissa, graduated physical therapy at a high point. I think I remember
Woo!
a while ago. Yes, congratulations, obviously. I remember a while ago she when Anna got mentioned on the podcast and posted it on the story, she like messaged me and was like, "Why have I never gotten a name drop?" So there you go.
Ha
It's
has Marissa
happening.
never got a name drop?
Maybe she has or hasn't. I
I don't
wouldn't
know.
know.
I don't know.
Um,
I mean, like in our defense, like
why would
I see Marissa maybe once a year.
yeah, that's I mean like yeah,
And in
she's
your defense,
obviously
you've
a
seen her
friend, but
probably
like
like three
yeah,
times a year.
exactly. But
No, I
hey,
understand though. Yeah,
yeah,
but shout out to
but she
Marissa. We're
graduated,
proud of you.
hung out in NC for a bit, was in Raleigh for a bit, and then
Mm,
came back in on Wednesday. It was a nice trip. It was nice to be back in good old NC where this humble little show began.
yeah,
Um, like all great podcasts do, they begin in Raleigh, North Carolina, of course.
absolutely. Did you see the bell tower?
Nah, we drove by campus though, which was nice just to
Okay.
see it again.
Yeah.
It was a little busy that weekend because I was not in Raleigh for Dreamville Fest, like pretty much everyone
Mhm.
else in the area was. And as
Oh,
a
yeah,
former
yeah.
NCSU student, you know how busy that area gets, especially closer to South Campus, Avon Ferry side of things,
Absolutely. Dorothy Dix Park. Yeah.
it gets packed out.
Um,
I don't know how Dreamville went this year. Hope it was fun. If anyone listening went, feel free to reach out and let us know how it was. I hope it was fun.
yeah,
Cole and Dreamville
that was
usually
the
put on a
last
good
one that they
show.
were, yeah, that was the last one they were going to do though. Did you know that?
This is the final one.
Yes.
Why?
They did it for like 5 years, and then Cole was just like, "Wow, we accomplished so much. Thank you so much, Raleigh, North Carolina. We're never doing this again."
I wonder why. Do you think it's just became a hassle to like plan it
It's
and manage
I was
it?
gonna say, I imagine pulling together a festival is like so much harder, you know? So I imagine they took like a big financial loss at that point. Maybe they finally got to the point where they were like breaking even again, and they just kind of cut their losses. Um,
Yeah.
Cole might have just been like, this is a headache. Like it's just like getting these artists managing their egos, like all that.
I mean,
Um,
realistically, the Dreamville label has enough guys to cover the festival, but I guess,
but
yeah, you
I
need some
mean
headliners because outside of Cole and
yeah,
Jid and
yeah,
maybe a little bit Boz, but I think he's a bit lower on popularity compared to those two,
yeah,
who's filling out the headlining sections is
exactly. And I
difficult to
mean like
manage.
you would think that like it'd be like, oh, it can't be like that hard to get them for like a day, right? But then again, think about how many like black hippie songs we got throughout the entire time they were all on the same label.
I mean, shit,
Uh,
the fact we got Revenge of the Dreamers 3 is miles ahead of just the fact it's more music than Black Hippie really ever was willing
yeah,
to provide us.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I guess like I'm gonna guess that's just one of those things that they just decided like,
It did its
we're
thing, people
it's
loved
its
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a legacy, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, they announced this year that they were like, this is gonna be the last one. So I mean, I hope it was a great show for everybody that went. You
Yeah,
know,
if you
I
did
hope.
go to see the last Dreamville Festival, I hope it was fun. I hope Lil Wayne actually mustered a good live performance because man, he has struggled to do that in the past couple of years, but hopefully he managed to pull through for the one last Dreamville Fest. So
Yeah,
I didn't see any footage of him going around where people were clowning him, so I'm assuming it was at least all right.
there. Yeah, there was that one video where he was performing, I think like some sort of like wrestling thing or whatever, and he just tries to like yell into the microphone. I mean, like, man, sometimes you gotta leave the game before the game leaves you. You know, like like
He's kind of Celtic Shaq when it comes to live performances these days.
exactly like I love Wayne, but like he doesn't need to like tour anymore. Like it's just not working.
Yeah, or even he's kind of like
Um,
Wizards Jordan in a way where like, like Wayne on a feature will tear it up and you're like, "Oh hell yeah. He can still put up 30, he can
yeah,
still put
he
up
still
40."
got it. Yeah,
But then
he
you're like,
just
"Oh."
he just doesn't have it for the live shows anymore. It's a shame. Um,
Man, the drugs catch up to you, honestly, and age too. A lot of things catch up to you, and all of us are, none of us are immune to aging, and he certainly was not immune to all of the shit that he did to himself. So it catches up, like you said. But
like
hey,
shockingly close in age. Yeah, that's hilarious. Wayne's 42 and Kendrick's 37. He's only 5 years older than him.
why does Wayne feel so much
Well,
older?
it's because Wayne's been famous since he was legitimately like 16 years
That's
old.
true. He was famous as
It's
like a
like,
child. Yeah.
yeah, he was on God, what song? Like he had like a hit when he was 16. Like he was a feature on a hit when he was like 16. I forget which one right now, but I mean it's like Chief Keef too, right? Like Chief Keef, I think is like in his 30s now, barely.
Yeah, he was famous as
Oh
like
no,
a
no, he's 29.
he's
Chief
like
Keef is
surprisingly
29.
young because he was
Yes,
famous as like a
yes.
14-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith was defining the Chicago sounds at like age 14. That's so
Hey,
crazy.
shout out to Keith, man.
Um
He was doing the damn thing.
yeah. Also, may I say Keith has an incredible last name. I'm honestly shocked he didn't just make it his rap name. His name is Keith Pharrell Cozart.
Ozart.
Cozart, like Mozart, but with a C.
Listen, man.
Like I'm
Cozart
just saying,
Sift.
yeah. I'm just saying, like that would actually be like a really fun. That'd be like a really cool rap name for him too. It was Cozart.
So the question I have,
But you know, uh, yeah.
the question I have
Mhm.
has Mr. Kozart Chief Keef rapped
Mhm.
over a Zaytoven beat?
Where are you going with? Oh, okay, I get it.
This is the question. Has
Sorry, I'm a
the
little sleepy.
it's okay. Has the modern classic collab happened? Is the
Yeah.
question.
I bet it
Yeah, they feel like
has
guys
at
who would
one
have.
point. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
they feel
Like
like
there
guys
used to
who
be
would have
so many
crossed over. Yeah.
there used to be yeah, there used to be such like defining lines like, oh, this person only works with people from Atlanta, this person only works West Coast, this person only works New York rappers, like whatever. But th those lines really don't matter anymore, you know? Like everybody works with everybody. There's still some people like even like Mustard, right, who has like so much of the West Coast sound. Like he's made songs for Migos, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
that's true.
it
Being
just doesn't matter
versatile
anymore.
with like sort of the
Yeah.
locale you work with is important now. Yeah, that's true. Um, well, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Anything else going on, or you want to just jump right into the tough stuff? Because we are not starting this episode off. Well, hopefully this part was a little pleasant, but we're not. It's not going to be pleasant going forward.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
Marissa, I hope you appreciate the fact we name dropped you when the main topic of this episode sucks.
I'm sure it means so much to
Um,
you.
yeah.
Well, say she checked out. You know, she only had to listen like the first 10 minutes. She can leave
Yeah,
now
yeah.
if
She
she
was like,
doesn't
all
want
right,
to stick
I'm
around.
good. She's like, I'm good. Okay. Y'all are gonna talk about important things. Never mind. That's not what I signed up for with that
I got
podcast.
vines. Peace.
Exactly. Um, yeah, I mean, let's get into it.
Yeah, there's no good segue for this that doesn't feel kind of distasteful,
Just
even though it's a
distasteful.
bit of a
Yeah.
joke. So,
That's
Aiden, I'll
that's
let you
why
take. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was a little worried when you said like, what about Cozart and Zaytoven? I was like, is he trying to do some sort of weird wordplay thing to get to this
No, it's
topic
just
that I'm
because
not
their names. Well,
understanding?
his name is like a. It
And
feels like a
I was like, I
Mozart
know
pun.
my brain,
It's okay. You're
exactly. My brain just wasn't
preemptively
working. Like I'm completely just gonna be like, I'm tired. Like that's just what it is.
preemptively worried about the
Um,
canceling. I got you. But I'll let you take the lead on this
yeah,
since you pulled this up as sort of the topic for the this is a topic to discuss. I think it's an important one, but you
yeah.
probably have more context for it than I do. So go for it.
Yeah. So as I get started with talking about this story, I want to just say that Basant and I are at a specific point of, and I don't usually tee up our topics talking about this, but you and I actually are at like a very specific point of privilege being able to talk about this because you and I are both US citizens, right, Basant?
Yeah.
Mhm. Just we're just double checking for both of us. I was not shipped over
Well, you thought I
here.
was going to come out as undocumented on this
Yeah.
podcast. The CIA was going to burst through my apartment door, FBI or
Or me,
whatever.
I could have been from Ireland, like, like I don't
You would have had that Ellis Island type of racism come at you,
know.
huh?
But exactly. I like cough and like it turns out it's got this like Irish like ahem, ahem. Um no, so I do bring that up though because that's very important in the context of this
Yes.
story because Vasant and I are going to say things that are most likely pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, however you want to like define it. Or even if not just anti-Israel, like anti their actions, whatever, not necessarily like not anti-Israeli, and you gotta be really careful about how you phrase
Yeah,
all this.
we talked about this sort of
Um,
in our prep before the show.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
make this nuance is important.
yeah,
Words mean things, thus, we need to all be on the same page as far as what the definitions are. So no one can
exactly.
misconstrue this. I don't think we're big enough
Exactly.
for people to try, but we just want to be fair and
Yeah,
be
but you never
clear.
like just want to have everything defined, like just in case there's
Yeah.
like that one, like this podcast gets heard by that one person that wants to send it to employers, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, let's make this
yeah,
abundantly clear. Aiden and I are not anti-Semitic. We are not Kanye West.
yes, yes,
Any views expressed that are negative towards the nation of Israel are specifically directed to that. are specifically directed to the nation's government, to the people
Hmm.
in power, to the people making the
Yeah.
decisions that have caused this conflict for ages before it became really important in the American zeitgeist since October
Yeah.
7th. So that's who the anger is directed towards. When we say we are pro-Palestine, we are pro the people having safety.
And the anger in this case is, yeah.
The
Yeah.
anger here is also
Sorry, you
directed at
keep
other
going.
people, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
anything negative towards Israel, there's nothing about the faith or the
Hmm.
people from a demographic standpoint that is being pointed at here. And being pro-Palestinian means we are pro their independence, their right to happiness, security, and the right to live essentially a free,
Yep.
normal life, and
Absolutely.
the right to also voice your opinion and protest and not feel like if you say something negative, you are going to get shut down. We are not condoning
Exactly.
violence or Hamas or terrorism, however you want to frame that.
Hmm.
We need to be clear where what we're getting at here because like Aiden said, people like to play around with these words and conflate what they mean. They do not mean the same
Yep.
thing. There's a reason for that. So let's not be ignorant to those meanings. I know the people listening, a lot of you, our fans, are very smart and you understand this. But like Aiden said, by chance, if this gets into the ear of a certain type of person, we want to be very clear.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Well
And if
said.
that certain type of person's listening, don't try and cut this part out because I have the audio, motherfucker.
We
I will
have it.
put
We
it.
have it.
We
We'll put it
own
as an
our own
Instagram
audio.
short if we need to.
Exactly.
Whatever.
It'd be a
No.
pretty, we're not a news organization, right? But it'd be a pretty
Yeah.
dour Instagram short compared to the last two that have gone
It
up.
would be,
But
yeah. No, it would be, yeah. But if we
anyway,
got clear our names, we got clear our names. That's it.
I think we've got sort
Um,
of the table setting out of the way a little bit. So,
yes, yes. So Mahmoud Khalil was or is that was is a Columbia student who was participating in the pro-Palestine
hmm
protest there. So the
hmm
pro-Palestine protests there were a lot of the encampment stuff, right?
yeah, which
So
I'm sure many
Vasant, I think you're aware
listeners
of this. Basically,
remember
like these
from the
students, they were like,
news. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
yeah, like they were staying out in the quads and things like that in the common
Yep.
space. No, yeah, you're good. Yeah, they're out in the quads and the common spaces, like camping out in tents, things like that. Basically, and like not going to classes as a sign of protest against the American government funding genocide in Palestine, in Gaza, and the West Bank, and against their administration's for their protest. So let me be very clear about this too. Were there definitely protesters that would have said things that were wrong? Absolutely. I
Yeah,
think
I
you and I
mean,
can agree on that. So, like every
yeah,
single like cause has
absolutely.
bad actors, you
Yeah,
know?
this has happened in 2020 during like what felt like a
Yeah.
peak of BLM protests online of when it comes to Israel Palestine. Multiple people have pointed out accounts who, while they seem pro-Palestine, are actually people who have expressed very dangerous and hurtful views on Jewish people, and they're just using this as an excuse to kind of
Yeah.
show themselves as credible and on, in
Yeah.
quotes,
Try
the
and
right
raise
side.
anti-Jewish
Yeah,
sentiment, things like
and kind of
that.
drag people into sort of their level. So yeah, we would be
Yeah.
ignorant to act like bad actors don't exist. They exist in
Yeah.
kind of everything. So yeah,
Yeah. However, I think also let's recognize the majority of people doing these protests are people who are in favor of the liberation of the Palestinian people. And I
and
think
that's
that
the
that
focus, right? That's
exactly.
not yeah.
And that is entirely separate from believing that Jewish people are inherently evil, wrong, like whatever, right? It is entirely separate from that. It's even not necessarily the same as saying that like Israel's claim to the land, like they shouldn't have it, right? It is at the very like there's a lot of people there that are saying like the genocide of the Palestinian people needs to end. Um, And the reason I say all that though too is that that Khalil, who he was one of the leaders of the encampment essentially. He worked as a negotiator between the school and the students. He is a very
He
like
was a
well-educated
mouthpiece, right?
man.
He was like a
He's mouthpiece, yeah,
spokesperson kind of
exactly. Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a very well-educated man. He's I think a bit like older than your typical college student. I think he was like there for like master's type of
He's a graduate
program.
student, so yeah, he was
Graduate
like, I think
student,
he's like
yeah.
30 or something. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's around
exactly,
the
yeah.
ballpark. Because graduate students, the age range is much wider anyway. But
And what wound up happening to him is that the State Department, led by Marco Rubio,
because of course it's led by Marco
they
Rubio,
have put
right?
out orders. Marco Rubio, yeah. This comes from Trump, and Rubio is enacting it, is that protesters that are, well, I'll get to that, on visas in the US
Mm,
are, if they have done anti-Israeli protests, they are liable to be deported,
mm. Also, Aiden, could you take a bit to maybe
which
check
right
your
away is absolutely insane. Oh,
maybe check
wait,
your
hang on.
Wi-Fi. There's been some cutting in and out issues
Sure. Yeah,
during the
thank you.
recording.
Thank you. Hang on.
I checked on my end too, so just give it a look, see.
Yeah, you're good. I just got things saying my connection was unstable, so I'm just gonna take care of that real quick.
Yeah, so while Aiden's doing that, apologies by the way if you've listened this far and it's been a bit spotty. Once again, apologies, technical difficulties, they happen. We're sorry. Um, just to add a little bit more color to Mahmoud Khalil and who he is. Born in Syria to Palestinian refugees, so obviously this is a
Yeah.
cause very near and dear to his heart. He earned his degree from Lebanese American University, and then he was actually doing work with the British Embassy in Beirut to help offer scholarships opportunities to people in the area to then come study in the UK. After doing that for a while, he then eventually ended up in the US to do graduate studies at Columbia University. So he's a guy who is very vocal, clearly, cares a lot about causes and people and things like that. So it's no surprise that he's been involved very much so in these protests and the encampments and sort of working as like a mediator and sort of trying to communicate what the demands, the intentions, etc. of the protesting group are. But I'll pause there, Aiden. I think you're good now. You're back with
Yeah,
us.
I think so.
Marco
Yeah.
Rubio didn't put him
Um,
in the pen, so we're good to go.
yes. So again, so the whole initial thing was like they're like, we're gonna start taking people that are on visas, and taking them back to whatever country they were from. This, in my opinion, is like an openly fascist thing to do. Um,
It's this
ev
one feels very anti-First
yeah.
Amendment
Yes, exactly.
because the
This
government's
is
actively essentially like creating it's kind of creating its own rules to be like, well, this isn't actually just free speech. This is actually speech that directly violates this thing we said, so therefore we're
yeah.
gonna like come at you.
It's amazing too, and I know that everyone has always calling out the hypocrisy of Trump at this point. I understand it's tired. I understand that I'm gonna sound like very like smarmy by saying this, but it's like Donald Trump policing speech is like one of the most absurd concepts that you can possibly have. Because
No one
that man
can
says
police
things that are
him when he gets
deeply,
banned
yeah,
on social medias. He needs to start his own because Twitter
yes.
is, before Elon bought it, was infected by the woke mind virus. But then
Yeah.
when people are saying things, now once
Hmm.
again, we're not talking about the bad actors here. We are talking about protesters who are
Yeah.
protesting for the independence of the Palestinian people and also the cease of the violence towards them and the genocide and all of that.
Yeah.
But because the U.S. politically is aligned with Israel, international politics wise, anything that is said against an ally of ours is now like, oh, we can't have that. How does
Which
that?
is also, that is insane, first of all.
I mean, yeah, that's like this is just straight up police state shit. This is literally like, you know what's funny, right? Like the US
Yeah.
and Trump in particular, obviously, are very critical of China and will point to stuff like this, like, oh, people can't think freely over there. People can't say anything over there. What is this?
Yeah. Literally,
Honestly.
right? And I mean, like, let me just quickly to give you
Yeah,
like
I'll pass it
a,
back to you. Yeah.
yeah, the rights that are guaranteed in a and this is the part that I'm going to tell you that is really that's really so evil about what's happening here. A school visa, right? So at a minimum, a lot of these people are on school visas, right? They are granted the same U.S. constitutional rights as citizens, including freedom of speech, right to remain
Hmm.
silent, right to legal
Hmm.
counsel, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the idea that just because the protests are quote unquote against an ally of ours, suddenly making their right to freedom of speech just completely invalid is ridiculous. It becomes even more ridiculous for someone who's a green card holder, who is essentially afforded almost every right a US citizen is, outside of the fact that they can't vote, you know? Like even green card holders, if they work and like they pay into the system, they can also get Social Security, Medicare, et cetera, et cetera. Basically things that like student visa people would not be qualified for.
Yeah.
And green cards are also like pathways to citizenship as well. I think after
Hmm.
like 5 years on a green card, you're allowed to apply for citizenship in the US and you can do the citizenship
Right.
tests and everything. Um, which the fact that we define citizenship by a civics exam, of course, is another conversation, but
For another
uh,
day.
for another day, yeah. Um, it is so the reason I bring up the green cards though is that Mahmoud Khalil, particularly, he is on a green card. He's a permanent legal resident of the United States. He's married to an American woman, who is a born in the U.S. citizen, and
He was
the
also
State
pregnant with
Department,
their child, by the way.
yeah, who was pregnant with their child. The State Department showed up to his apartment one day in plain clothes and put him into a van to arrest him. And they threatened to arrest his wife for asking questions.
Yeah, that's
And
cool and normal, right? That's how we do these
yeah,
things.
that right there, first of all, is an incredibly, incredibly dangerous thing to do. The act of arresting
Is
someone
this
with like
not very
plain
similar?
clothes
This
and
is very
like,
similar to what we saw in the 2020 BLM era,
yeah,
like the 2020 era BLM protests, where people were getting put in vans in like Portland and
yeah,
stuff during protests.
exactly. Which again, like the idea that he was being arrested by these people, like how is he even supposed to trust necessarily these people are like legit if they're doing plain clothes in a van with like without like any like government marking on it
Did
or
they show
anything,
him a
right?
warrant or something?
Like
Like,
yeah, it's like and like they took him away. They didn't like allow him to like the wife was on the phone with the lawyer, um, trying to get help recording it. Again, they threatened to arrest her for like interfering because she was asking questions about where they were taking him and like what agency they were from, and they would not give her the information. Um, and this is all because that he was participating in these encampment protests for Colombia. And I want to first applaud Mahmoud because that takes a lot of bravery to begin with, you know, especially
yeah,
at
I mean,
that point.
when your
At
situation's
that point,
tenuous,
yeah.
considering who's in office, I
Yeah.
respect that he
No,
was like, no, I believe in what I believe. I gotta
I
talk
will
about
say
it.
again, these protests had started in the Biden administration,
Yeah, they
right? And they're
did.
being
I'm saying like to
prosecuted now by the Trump
continue,
admin.
yeah.
Yeah, but to continue his
Even under the Biden
advocacy and to
admin, it wasn't
continue,
exactly the
yeah, yeah,
greatest
exactly, yeah.
time either, right? Yeah,
To
when it
to
comes to protests.
advocate for what he believes was right and what I mean, I agree with him. I do agree with him on the sense that I think that Palestine should be free. Um, and to also, this is also someone that explicitly called out anti-Semitism within their circle, saying, like, we cannot have that here, you know? He explicitly was advocating for peaceful protesting against what the government was doing and how we were funding a genocide. And he also made sure to make sure people knew this is against Israel and America and not against a people. Like, it's against their governments, not a people, you know? Um, and despite everything there, and despite the fact that he's a green card holder, and despite the fact that
He's
he
operating well
broke
within his right to protest.
exactly, he's operating within his rights to protest. The fact that he did not break a single law, they could not charge him with a law, and they detained him. Like, are they not just
Well, they
charge
said
him
he was
with
leading
breaking a
activities
law?
aligned to Hamas, which is very vague, and they didn't really provide any additional evidence
Yes,
beyond
and
that. That
their
makes a lot
their
of sense.
case their case is built on the idea that his activity is detrimental to U.S. foreign policy, which I don't understand how a protest at Colombia affects like what we're doing overseas. It doesn't, like
Also, by that
it clearly
logic,
doesn't. We
every
gave hundreds of
protester,
billions of dollars to Israel despite it.
yeah, and also every
Like,
protester, then, regardless of if they're
yeah,
American citizens or not, are then
yeah.
thus negatively affecting foreign policy. And good fucking luck putting all of them behind bars and not having it create like
Mhm.
really severe problems. Like, this is ridiculous.
And Khalil had, let me see. Yeah, we have about 3 minutes in this call, so I can get to like what happened here. Khalil
Yeah.
had to stay in court, and there was a trial that lasted a few weeks for him, basically determining if he will be allowed to stay in the US or if he will be deported. And unfortunately, the judge in this case, and I don't know how this judge ruled this because this is ridiculous, said that he will be deported back to Syria or Algeria. He has a choice of either because I think he has like residency in both. Um, because she agreed with the Trump admin's case that he was being detrimental to like U.S. foreign policy, or he was like running against foreign policy or
But
whatever.
it's not a matter of
And
opinion. It has to be a matter of fact or beyond
yes,
reasonable
yes,
doubt.
it's
Because
it's
you're
an
like, oh, Trump admin's
absurd
right.
ruling in my opinion.
That's not what your job is as a
And
judge.
I recognize this. I'm not a lawyer. I get
We're
that.
not. But
But
this
the
feels like
idea,
this doesn't feel like a very apolitical based on the evidence type of decision. It really doesn't.
yes, yes, the idea that you can deport someone for acting against, this is quite literally the reason that's given in the article, on the grounds that he threatens foreign policy. That like what?
Because think extrapolate what that means, right? This means
Yeah.
that if you do anything that disagrees or is against what the US government decides is the stance on certain relationships, policies, etc., internationally,
Mhm.
you essentially are at risk of getting in trouble because by not agreeing and maybe not agreeing in a very public forum or or maybe you have a platform and you disagree publicly and that causes some dissent, you can get in trouble because you dare to think differently than the government. In what
Exactly.
world is that not terrifying to people? All these dumbasses that quote books about like 1984, the society, Big Brother. In what way is this not what you are scared of? This is literally telling you what is okay and what is not okay to say.
Well,
That's where
it's
this is
amazing because
going. That's what the
yeah, and
precedent
like
of this type of thing is.
exactly. And like so we have about a minute and a half on this call up. But like what I would say too is like it is amazing how there are people who will just like we have been our government, right? And the representative republic that we have and the democracy that we have um is this is directly in conflict with it. This is in my opinion straight up fascism what they're doing. And I don't use that lightly. I did not really say that about Trump's first term that often. Um, but I've said it about his second term quite frequently
This is
because
blatant.
this is blatant. This is
It was
insane.
pretty, I think it was pretty present in the first term, but this time he just doesn't even care about
Yeah.
trying to hide it. And with that, we'll take a pause. And then when we come back, I do want to bring up a story about a protest that highlights the negative behavior that they're attempting to pin on Mr. Khalil here and show how there are differences. But we'll
Yeah.
get to that in a second. We'll take a quick pause. We'll be right back with all of you. We're back to it then.
Yep.
So yeah, so let me get to the point I sort of left the last piece on. So the idea of like a protest that sort of more adequately like a protest to me that represents behavior from someone who is here on a student visa that would warrant some sort of action potentially. This is a little different because I'm not going to be talking about a protester here, but this is a story we have actually told on this show. It's a much earlier episode.
Hmm.
But when Aiden and I were students at NC State, there was a time, I don't remember the year, so you'll have to apologize. I have to apologize. You'll have to
Yeah.
forgive me. When like the Hong Kong China conflict was kind of at a peak, at least in the
Yeah.
international zeitgeist. And to show support for Hong Kong, a group of Asian students at NC State put on a very simple sort of protest where they were just going to NC State as a freedom expression tunnel where you can essentially graffiti anything, and they were going to
Yeah.
make a little mural about it. I think maybe like sign it or write different things on it, and they were all going to kind of be there. It was going to be kind of like, just painting something and being there together. That was essentially the protest, or it was just a sign of solidarity, really. And then there are Chinese international students at NC State. They did not like this. Obviously, they hold the views of, I'm sure, a lot of people in China when it comes to Hong Kong and their independence. And unlike sort of a counter protest, which maybe is them painting their own thing or chanting, or sort of just gathering in a way that, once again, you could argue intimidation, but like they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Sure, right? But that's not what they did. They got in there. They clearly tried to physically intimidate by getting in people's way. They did touch people and
Hmm.
try and push them out of the way. They would smoke cigarettes and blow the smoke at people, and they would start yelling and chanting. And once again, when protest and protests come together, things can get heated. But that is an example of behavior that can get you in trouble. You're putting your hands on people, you're
Yeah.
actively trying to intimidate them by forcing them out of a space. And you're essentially kind of going beyond just the like vocal protest lines, and you're getting physical, you're getting into their face, you're getting handsy. And if a university saw that and felt the need to discipline those students, I think that would be more fair,
Hmm.
because it's not so much about just the speech, it's about the fact that you're harassing and touching students when you
Yeah.
could potentially like get in trouble over that. Luckily, no like punches or anything were thrown, but grabbing people and like kind of yanking them away, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I bring
I
that example up to show how that is the type of behavior that warrants some scrutiny, I think. But that's not the behavior that Mr. Khalil and many protesters showed. They said their thing, they stayed in a place. Maybe we're in people's way, but we're not actively harassing or physically
I
harassing people in a way that I would consider problematic,
I
at
can
least
tell
not this
you
man in particular.
I was gonna say this man in particular, I can tell you did not do any impropriety. I'm just gonna say didn't do anything legally wrong because the State Department could not charge him with a crime. Think about that
Yeah.
for a
And once
moment.
again, the bad actors exist, the people who say
Yeah.
the slurs towards Jewish people, the people who probably do get handsy. I don't like that
Yeah.
either. But right? So, but we're talking, like you said, about a guy who's not doing any of the things that would at least like open up a reasonable case, like the example I gave with the
Yeah.
anti-Hong Kong sort of counter protest that happened
Yeah.
at NC State against the Hong Kong Solidarity Group. That's not what happened with this guy. So it's like now it's just about ideological differences that can get you in trouble.
Which is so crazy. Like that. I So I'm reminded of, and again, the everything this admin's trying to do too. There was also another case recently, a Maryland man, uh legal US resident was shipped off to a prison in El Salvador with MS-13 alleged, sorry, I should say alleged MS-13 gang members because they are not giving due process to anyone that they are sending over. There's one person that they absolutely know that they got wrong. And the Trump admin solution for that was, well, he's kind of in the hands of El Salvador now, so we're not gonna do anything, right? Um, which is also insane, right? And it just shows like the purpose here is not safety, clearly. If
It
it
really
was
isn't.
about if it was about safety, they would give these people due process to ensure that one, they are not here legally, two, that they are criminals, right? Um, they would give every single one of these people a day in court. They clearly do not care because it literally took the Supreme Court and they haven't even done like nothing's happened yet. Like the ruling just came today. The Supreme Court ruled, and Vasant, I want you to like clear your ears for the next part. In a 9-0 ruling that holding that man in El Salvador was unconstitutional, and the Trump admin has to facilitate his return.
9-0 is crazy.
That is
This Supreme
insane.
Court?
That
Yeah.
is insane. It's a 6-3 Republican court right now, and it went 9-0. But that just
What?
shows how little regard this admin is treating people like Khalil, treating people like that person that they sent to El Salvador. They do not care about, like, I mean, look, Kanye got mad, or people got mad at Kanye for saying George Bush does not care about black people, right?
Now they're
I'm
getting
not
mad
here
at him
to,
for real
yeah,
reasons.
I'm not here to defend Kanye, but like it is very clear this admin does not care about you. And in fact, they really wish you were not here if you are a minority that is not useful to them. Like that is just true.
Yeah, I mean, what the example you just mentioned, and this case with Mr. Khalil, and the stuff we talked about on the last episode with the leaks and the way that was handled,
Yeah.
this admin's constant disregard for accountability, ethics, and transparency. They don't talk straight. They
Yeah.
are vague on purpose. They don't provide further detail. If they fuck up, they'll say, "Not our fault."
Yeah.
Right? Or they'll put it on some boogeyman that doesn't exist. And they don't care about what's ethical. They don't care about people, especially if they dare commit the crime of not being a classical white American.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous to me that in articles about the stuff regarding Mr. Khalil and his impending apparently deportation, that Trump is quoted as talking about how anyone who is anti-American is going to face consequences. Does anyone not realize how crazy that sounds? Because
That's so
unlike when we
insane.
started this discussion, when I could define the terminology of being anti-Semitic is not the same as being anti the Israeli government, it is not the same as being pro-Palestinian freedom, right? These are terms with definitions that we can define. It doesn't matter what you define un-American as, because what matters is what him and the admin decide it means.
Yeah. You know what
They
actually is
decide what it means and what's going to get you in trouble.
what actually is un-American is deporting people for exercising their freedom of speech that they are
This is
guaranteed as
un-American.
being on US soil. That is insane.
Yeah, and when you have Caroline Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, saying stuff about the admin not tolerating individuals that have the privilege of being in our country to study, and then siding with pro-terrorist organizations that have killed Americans. See, these are the people that are making these calls. These people who
Yeah.
lack nuance. These people who can't tell you the difference in all of these
Well, no,
terms.
they know what the difference is. They don't care. Like
Well, they
that's
don't
the thing.
care.
They again, I will just straight
Well,
up
that's
say this.
actually
You
that's
gotta
the
call
scariest part, actually. Yeah,
you no,
you caught
exactly.
me right. Yeah, you got me there. Yeah.
You have to call a spade a spade. They're evil people. Like genuinely. I mean
Yeah.
that. Like I
I'm
will
I'm giving them
no
benefit of the doubt.
sugarcoating. Yeah, no sugarcoating. By the actions that they are doing, these are evil people in
They
charge.
are.
A
Yeah.
hundred percent.
Thanks for checking me on that. Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
that. It would be
Yeah.
like if they were being dumb, you're like, that's dangerous. This is intentional, which is
Yeah.
worse. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how well you construct and define the stances that you take. If these people deem it against their best interest, they will package it as un-American and pack you up too. It is ridiculous to me that we live at a time when we have conflated patriotism and caring about your country with rabid jingoistic bullshit. Someone
Yep.
who actually, I've said this on the show a million times about a million topics, so I'll say it again. If you actually care about something, you are critical of it. You call
Yeah.
out what doesn't work. Why? Because you want it to be better and you know it can be better. If I don't give a fuck about a thing or a person, I would not even bother to be critical of them, because why would I care what happens? I don't like certain teams or celebrities, and I have my opinions, but I'm not actively critiquing how they could be better people because I don't give a shit if they're better people. But I critique what this country does, what the nation's leadership does, because I so desperately still want it to be a good place for everybody. And I
Yep.
know it can be, but right now it can't, because of not only the people in charge, but the people who follow them. who believe they are somehow being more American by doing this. You're directly going against the principles this country was founded on. When the civil, not the Civil War, when the Revolutionary War happened, right? And you were in the street, advocating for American independence, right? You could have
Yep.
been killed or beaten. They teach you this in history
By
class. Maybe they don't
by
anymore.
a tyrannical government as well.
Exactly. Such a big part. I know some of you fuckers watched Hamilton. Such a big part of that movement for American independence was because any semblance of resistance was met with violence and aggression and an iron fist. And we
Yep.
wanted a free, independent nation that allowed us to express our ideals and build a society that supported the right to have an opinion and build the life you want. And now we have somehow become the very people who had us captive as a country ages ago.
Yeah. And the amazing, again, like at this point, they are just broadly like, or just proudly like flaunting it too. Trump has quite literally referred to himself as a king at this point. He said like "Long live the king" at a certain point because he got rid of congestion pricing in New York, which is like a very like silly thing to call yourself king over. Um,
Trump is just King George in
it's
2025.
Yeah, and it's again, it is amazing. It is amazing. I said this earlier, but it's amazing the way that people meet fascism with applause, right? It is amazing that there are people in this country who know our history, who know what we fought against to have this nation, watch other people's rights get trampled on, right?
Yeah, and the people who
And
applaud, yeah.
all because they're like, well, at least like, trans people aren't playing in sports anymore. Like it's like, okay,
Yeah,
great.
congratulations for dying
Yeah.
on that hill. And it's funny you
Yeah.
point out there's people applauding this because they see Mr. Khalil as an anti-American terrorist, heretic,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Keep clapping until you realize that people that actually, maybe if you're clapping, the people that would never do this actually, but
Hmm.
you're going to what happens when people are just being critical of the government? People
Yeah.
complain about the presidency all the time,
Yep.
right? Everyone's got issues with gas prices, this prices, foreign policy, domestic
Yeah.
policy. But now when you say that shit, you got someone knocking on your door telling you if you don't can it, you got a nice warm bed in a cell waiting for you. We're being a bit, you might think we're being extreme here, and obviously we're like kind of projecting this out, but there is a precedent this type of shit sets,
Yep.
and it's not a good one. And that's a future you could be staring at. One where expressing an opinion that differs from that of your current admin could put you in a precarious position. That's insane. The same people who like Trump now and were like just regular Republicans before they lost their mind on Facebook or whatever, they would like laugh at you if you even tried to tell them that, hey, don't say anything bad about the president, he'll get you. They're like,
Tired,
anyone can hate the president. That's how it,
tired
that's
point, tired point again, but like again, just imagine Obama doing it, what they would have said, right? Like
exactly
imagine what they
like
would have said if Obama did this.
bitching about the government's policy is like an American pastime. And
It's
now
like our
there's people
favorite thing to
cheering.
do.
Yeah, now people
It's
are
like,
cheering about someone getting in trouble for following the rules in terms of protesting and
mhm.
getting deported, acting
Yeah.
like that doesn't set a dangerous precedent for anyone else who says anything wrong. And you might say, oh, he's only aiming at people that aren't American citizens. First of all, crazy to act like that's like some good, safe thing that's going to
Yeah.
make me all feel all cuddly and warm on the inside. But also, the admin has expressed that anyone who is saying stuff that is un-American will get dealt with. What is this?
Ridiculous. It's absolute insanity. And like,
All the best, honest. Like we can't do anything other than like. I
no,
mean,
of
there'll be
course,
some links, and I mean, we can talk
yeah.
about it. We can spread awareness that this is not an
Yes,
okay
yes.
thing. As
Yeah.
usual, we'll put some links in the description that are relevant to the topic at hand. At the end of the day, all this ranting and yelling, obviously, once again, as you said, from privileged positions at this current point in time.
It's
But
because,
like,
and the reason I want to talk about this day, Vasanti, is that I recognize the fact that you and I are allowed to, you know? There are plenty of people
yeah,
right now who probably want to say something about this but are scared, you know? Because
Yeah, because
like,
this is what this behavior does. It's meant to silence
yeah,
people. It's
exactly.
insanity. You read about this shit in books.
Yes, this is
This
not
is in the
supposed.
fucking Hunger Games books.
you
Like, what the
you
hell?
didn't even read history. It was at the movies. It made $1 billion.
Exactly. Oh my God. Like, and where I was going though, I do, that is a good point that like, the
Yeah.
people who can say this stuff at the current time can get away with it should say it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, I feel bad for him, Mr.
Hmm.
Khalil. I feel bad for his wife.
Yeah.
I
Their
feel bad for
their
his
unborn
child
child.
that
Yeah.
is
Like,
yet to be born. Yeah, you care so much about babies, but now the kid doesn't have a dad,
yeah.
at least in the
And
country.
this is such a crazy thing to have to like basically pray for, but I just pray that the Supreme Court takes his case. I pray that they kick it up to them.
I hope. Yeah.
And I hope that they somehow, this court somehow reaches the right decision because they just did with the man from Maryland. So I'm like hoping and hoping that they recognize this is just blatantly a disrespect of a green card holder and legal residents' First Amendment rights.
It just is. And I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, what it feels like if I've talked in circles during this, I do apologize, but I will just say there is a difference between being a, we'll put in quotes, patriot, someone who cares
Yeah.
about this country, and being delusional. Someone who cares
Yeah.
about this country acknowledges that it is imperfect and needs to and can get better and
Yeah.
achieve the greatness that it needs to achieve. And someone who's delusional pretends that everything is fine.
Absolutely.
If you like this type of shit, you are delusional and it will all come crashing down. I don't know when, but one day it will, and you'll
Hmm.
realize that what's left is a hollow carcass. It's not America, it's nothing.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is it's
that's
ridiculous and it's stupid, and
if,
I feel immense sympathy and just for not only Mr. Khalil, but anyone else who's going to go through
yeah.
this type of bullshit, anyone else who's dealing with this type of bullshit. It doesn't mean much coming from a small little show like ours, but we support you. We're here for
Yep.
you. And hopefully this doesn't continue.
And if they're at the small percent chance that there's someone that hears this that would like to have a discussion about their status as, maybe someone that the government is currently trying to come after and you just want a platform to talk about it. Honestly, Vasanth and I think would welcome that. We
We'll
would love
do
to
it.
have that discussion. I know that that won't happen because I am realistic and I know this won't be heard by anybody that is in that situation. But on the small chance that that happens, Vasanth and I would love to have that discussion so we can shed more light on this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, Aiden,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not these episodes aren't scripted. So when I say I'm going
No, no,
off
they're not. Yeah.
script,
Yes.
I don't mean it literally, but like I don't know, man. How did we get here? Honestly, I mean, I know some people hear that and they're like, "Don't be stupid. We got here because the American public, whether it's, we all disagree, but at the end of the day, we got here because of like, there's a clear lineage. Like you can track
Yeah,
how we
like
got here.
I mean the 51% or whatever of this country quite literally voted for this to happen. Like
Yeah. So I
this is
don't say
like
how.
pretty expressly stuff that they said they were gonna do. So it's like,
Yeah. I don't say how do we got here in like a literal sense. I know, but it's sort of just this a disbelief. Like
mhm.
every week, there's a new thing that's
Yeah.
more insane or equally as insane as the last thing.
Yeah.
Satire doesn't feel satirical anymore
Yeah,
because
we
this
might
is getting ridiculous. You
we
can't make
might
anything more insane than what's happening right now in front of you.
I was gonna say we might want to expressly just aim to make next week's episode very lighthearted to kind of like, or next 2 weeks
Yeah,
from
we
now,
had like a little
whatever.
lighthearted bit, like segment just playing after this to kind of be a palate cleanser, but it honestly would
Yeah.
feel inappropriate. to
Yeah.
me.
So maybe we'll talk about that a bit more on the next episode. But
But I don't know. I
yeah.
think maybe sometimes you just need to have some real talk. And real
Yeah,
talk, this
yeah,
is
yeah, exactly.
bullshit. I mean,
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's crazy. Like again, what I would definitely say about this, like just to kind of like summarize my feelings, like if you can watch this and be okay with it, and this is something that you want to happen within your country, you want to live in a very different America than I do. You know, I I want to live in an America that I actually can say that the people here are guaranteed the rights that they're guaranteed. I want to live in an America where people do not, even if you say, because I look, you could say something wrong, hateful, whatever. Your right to say it is important
and then
because
dealing with the appropriate consequences
there
unless
because
this.
again, freedom of speech, freedom of consequence are two different things, right? But something what I'm saying here is that we haven't had a war against how should I say? We've had centuries and centuries of fighting for this right, Bassam? To
Yeah.
say maybe not the perfect thing, but to say the thing that you think and that you think is right, and to protest and to live the life you want to live within this country. And the people in power are trying to take that all away right now. And that is something that is deeply evil. And that is something that I will never be okay with. And that is something that is so far removed from the country that I want this to be.
Disagreement should not result in deportation. That's
Absolutely.
the crux of all of this. Like it's insane to see the idea that you could have interests that are not aligned with that of the American government and be penalized for it.
And
And
this, yeah, and
it's just jarring. It's like, and I mean all the other stuff's jarring too. Like let's be honest. Like
yeah,
the the mediocrity, not mediocrity, it's sort of the clusterfuck that's required for you know the signal stuff to happen.
yeah,
You know? Like, oh yeah,
yeah.
spoiler alert for Succession. One, two, three, four, five. Okay, you've had enough time. The signal stuff is the equivalent of when Roman in Succession accidentally sends a dick pic to his father.
Nice.
That is a comedic, that's like a satirical drama TV show.
I've actually never seen Succession, so I didn't know that happened. That's really funny. Whoops.
That's what the signal stuff is. And that's real
Uh,
life with real government sensitive
mhm.
information.
Yeah.
Accidentally getting sent to El Salvador when you shouldn't have been, and then being told that they're just gonna let whatever
And
happens
I
happens.
I should clarify too, in El Salvador prison, where there are that is now full of alleged MS-13 gang members.
Yeah, and there's just a regular person in there
Just a
with
dude that
them.
was a legal resident that did nothing wrong. Yeah, and the government just went, oh, well, I guess you're kind of stuck.
It took the Supreme Court being like, no, 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 no.
No, that's insane. Like that's like they literally went, this is too far, okay?
Like, what are we doing? Like, it just like, I, sometimes like I don't think I can put myself in the mind of someone who likes and is supporting all this stuff because how are you spinning it in your brain that this all makes sense to you, that this is all protecting the American dream and America's interests and the future for all of us and the following generations? How is this doing any of that? This is selfish behavior by people who are very interested in consolidating all of the power at the top.
Yep.
Free speech, woke this, woke, all of these are just buzzwords to hide the
Yeah.
fact that, like Aiden said, these are deeply evil, evil people. There's no justification. Maybe that's the lesson. Stop trying to make it make sense because it never will.
Yep.
Because they're just evil.
Yeah, it's just
There's just,
evil. Like
we have let
it's
evil
just evil.
people
Yeah.
get into the government, get into positions of power, and now we are all paying for it.
Yep.
And by the way, this is not like a party thing. The Democrats are evil and also just as responsible for this happening.
Yeah.
They're evil in their own ways too, trust me. And they also let this happen.
Yep. Absolutely. I
So this is
mean,
a
yeah, of
failure for a
course,
lot of
again,
people.
we cannot ignore the fact that the US was sending money to Israel for a long time in the Biden admin to fund this genocide, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
that was deeply evil too.
that was deeply evil as well. And we will call
People were
a
signing
spade there.
missiles. Democrats were putting their names on fucking missile
Yes.
heads.
Yeah, we will call a spade there, absolutely. This is not a partisan podcast at all. It is just that the party in power right now is doing things that are incredibly, incredibly evil.
If they did this in a movie, you would be like, that's a little much.
Yeah, you'd be like, this seems on the nose. I don't know. Seems a bit too, it doesn't seem subtle enough.
At this point, I don't know if I could even critique a movie that feels on the nose because what do you call this bullshit?
Like yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's as bad as it is quite insane that they just want to create what it really is. They just want to create a monolith, you know?
Yeah.
It's a complete
Create like a hive mind, right? Like everyone thinks the
yeah,
same way.
I'm trying to back a complete backlash against the whole push for diversity in our country and the whole push for like it is to try and return America back to its original order, which is all these like WASP settlers, you know, and to make sure that
Wasn't
they are the
remember
ones in
when
power.
remember there was an era when like America would proudly proclaim its like melting pot status
Yes.
and all of
Yeah.
the cultures and diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's like that's almost something we're ashamed of. Or we're not ashamed of it, but we will stop any sort of like anytime a minority does anything cool now, a DEI is everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're not even using it right. Just say the N-word at this point. Like I know what you want to say.
Yeah. It's exactly
Just
what
say
they
it.
want to say.
Man, I mean, okay, to sort of start maybe pushing us in a direction of closure on this episode
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
This is frustrating, and maybe
Yeah.
listening to this is cathartic, or maybe it makes you feel like you also need to go yell or vent.
Yeah.
Please do that, whether that's by listening or talking to somebody. We can't get through this if we all lose ourselves along the way. So talk to your friends, take a break. I am incredibly disconnected from being online during this time because once Trump won, I knew it wasn't going to be healthy for me. I know what's going on because I have great people like Aiden around who will just tell me, but it's important to disconnect, turn off the phone, turn off the news. Yes, it is a privilege to be able to ignore it for a little bit, but it is okay to use it in order to give yourself the energy to handle what comes next. So
Absolutely.
take breaks, talk to people, do things that you enjoy. You know, you might not be able to get a Switch 2 right now because of the tariffs or pre-order one, but play games, go for a walk, hang out with people, do the stuff that you like because this time's going to suck. It just is. It's a
Yeah.
bitter pill that everyone's going to have to swallow. But that doesn't mean you have to tear yourself apart during the entire thing. So, it's okay to get mad, it's okay to get frustrated, but do stuff you enjoy, watch stuff that you like. And this episode is very serious and we didn't get to goof as much like we did even on the Signal episode. But, listen to shows like us, hopefully, as like a form of respite from what's going on outside. When we talk about goofier things or do dumb tier lists or talk about albums and, treat them like they're very important, even though at the end of the day, it's all a wash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's a I want to put that out there. It's just, I speak from personal experience that this stuff can really tear you up. So
Yeah.
try to stay in one piece.
Absolutely. One Piece.
Shout out to Lee.
Nah, yeah, just a little joke to maybe send y'all out on there.
You want to add
No,
anything, Adam, to
no,
that?
I think I've said what I need to say, and I agree with everything you said there. So yeah, just what I would say, stay safe, know your rights, and don't be afraid to exercise them. I'm sorry that this, and I know this kind of contradicts what I said before, and I'm sorry that this government is going to make you afraid to exercise them. But
There are people
Just
that are there for you. There are communities
exactly.
that are there for you.
Yeah.
Lean on them because that's what's going to get us through these tough times is people.
Mhm.
People put us in this predicament, but people will also help us see it through and hopefully get out of it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
in addition to staying safe and staying healthy, we also want you guys to.
Seems a little tasteless, but stay creamy.
I mean, it's a little bit of
It's
normalcy at the
it's
end.
fine. It's fine. I'm just making a joke. Yeah.
Well,
Stay creamy though.
we'll see you guys next week, hopefully with something a little lighter. Take it easy. Read the description. We'll see if we can find some useful links as far as places to donate and put your money behind. I know Aiden and I will donate to different causes as we can. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's good just to have that resource. Peace out. We love all of you. Be easy. See you in the next one.
Bye.